What's up, guys? My name is Chris Sheldon. I'm a Cat 4 crit racer here in Bentonville, Arkansas, and I am racing for BMC Walmart Cycling and coached by LeBourne Coaching here locally. Today, we're going to be breaking down how you navigate the beginning of a crit, how you can build your race plan on the beginning of a crit, and how you can set the conditions early in the race so that you're set up to win for the later parts. So when we're building a race strategy and when we're building for an overall win, what we want to do is we want to start with saying, what kind of positioning do we want to be in the field? Where do we want to be in the field? And really it sits in one or two buckets depending on what kind of power profile you have and what kind of body you have. So for sprinters, we also have our breakaway riders. Those two guys are going to have different ways that they want to approach sitting in the field. For our sprinters, it's a pretty simple job. They want to get there to the end of the race, having touched the front as little as possible, and they want to have done as little work as possible. Mark Cavendish is quoted saying that the reason he's so good at sprinting isn't just the sprint, it's the 6 hours of racing that he does before, where he's done as little work as possible. That's where he gets his edge from. So if you're a sprinter body type and you're looking to sprint at the end of the race, you don't be sitting in that 10 to 15th wheel in probably a 30 or 40 size person field. The reason this is that if you're any higher up, you're going to be dealing with kind of the pack dynamics where riders are going to be peeling off and you're going to find yourself caught in the wind sometimes or having to do actual work. Whereas if you're farther back, say 25th, 30th wheel, you're really going to be subject to that accordion effect where the field is coming in and out and slowing and speeding up, and you're going to end up doing a lot of work for really no extra speed and not able to carry your speed as well as you would like. So by staying towards the front of the race and ahead of the mid-pack, you're going to reduce a lot of those errors, you're going to reduce a lot of those crashes that you're going to get stuck behind, as well as you're going to save the most energy possible while still being a part of the race. But if you're a breakaway rider, that's where things get a little more interesting. Breakaway riders actually want to move a little farther up to around 5th to 10th wheel. And the reason this is because if you've ever been in a race where you've seen a really savvy breakaway riders want to come if the pack's on this right side of the field. Breakaway riders want to build up their speed before they get to the tip of the pack and then shoot past. Because then at that point, they're traveling 27, 28, maybe 30 miles an hour. And if the pack's going 20, 22, they can't respond because the power required to overcome that initial inertia of your bike, you know how hard that feels. It's an incredibly difficult effort. And especially if 2 or 3 riders are at the front, they're going to look to each other and say, who's going to chase this down? And so that's why breakaway riders are so successful. So we're planning ourselves to be planning for a breakaway. By sitting 5 to 10 wheels back, what we're able to do is we can see that rider preparing for the breakaway. We can see him begin to build up speed and launch himself. And what that means is that we can be looking at the front of the field to see what's going on. But we can also look to our left and look to our right and see, oh, he's about to attack. I can hop on his wheel. And now I'm getting a free ride into a breakaway where I'm fresher than he is because I didn't do as much work. And maybe I can attack him, I can work together if I like the composition of the breakaway, if there are riders that you like, or you just follow it and nothing happens and you're still pretty fresh because you weren't the one who initiated. So that's what we're going to be looking for positioning wise within this race. But I also want to quickly stop for our lower category riders. I'm a Cat 4 myself. I understand that I am not the most experienced rider in the world. But one of the big things that my coaches drill into my head is that at this level, you're not a sprinter and you're probably not a breakaway rider. No one is good enough at what they do in these fields to actually punish you the way that Cat 1 and Cat 2 fields will. If you're a breakaway rider in Cat 1 and 2, if you're not good enough at a TT at a long 40-minute effort, the field's going to easily bring you back. And if you're a sprinter in a Cat 1-2 field who can't crack 1,000 watts, you're not getting anywhere close to top 20 with those sprinters. But in Cat 4-5, the sprints are really sloppy and the breakaway dynamics sometimes are non-existent. So it really depends on what your field is happening and how you're racing. So don't pigeonhole yourself. Of course, come with a plan. You can say, I'm going to race this for a sprint, or I'm going to be looking for breakaways. But if you're a breakaway rider and the breakaways don't stick and you're coming to the end of the race, don't give up because you've now been presented a sprint. Take that opportunity to sprint as hard as you can, and you'll surprise yourself with how many races you'll win or take a top 3, a top 5, a top 10, just because you didn't rule yourself out and you were still motivated. But now that we've got that plan, that initial where we want to position, we want to talk about the start of the race. And so now that we're looking at this footage, one of the big things that you want to know just anytime you're starting a crit race is you have to put in big power to start the race. You need to get clipped in instantly, and you need to be putting in as much power as you can to make sure that you don't get sifted back in the field to the very back. Especially that we've just set our target, as is between 5 and 10, maybe to 15 wheels if we're a sprinter. We certainly don't want the entire field to come around us, and now we're sitting 20th, 30th wheel, having to fight really hard. One of the big things you want to know is after pre-riding the course, make sure you know which side of the corner, of the first corner, you want to take. If you're in a lower category field, I definitely recommend being on the inside. Riders tend to drift outwards, especially in lower categories, and so you want to be positioning if you're coming to a left-hand turn, the left side of the start line, so you can take that turn comfortably and be ready to go. But second, you want to make sure that you're ready for the moves that are going to come around you. So as you move, be sure that you're not doing too much effort. You want to do just enough to stay exactly where you are at the finish line. You're starting first, maybe in the second row. You want to stay there and try and really hit that target. But once we've gotten going, and as you can see this, there are a couple of goals that you want to be doing in these first couple of moves. There's not a lot that's really going to go on, depending on your racer. Now, of course, there are some crazies who will send it from lap 1. Have to be able to watch out for those. But there are some couple questions that you want to be answering. There are really 4 of them. So 1, how does the course feel at speed? If you were pre-riding at 21, 22 miles an hour, and now you're ripping around the course at 26, 27, do those corners feel the same? Are you still as comfortable? Do you still feel as powerful? Are the places that you thought you could move up not accurate anymore? Or are the places that you now can move up different because of the speed that you're going? Second question is, how is the field moving? Sure, you rode it in the pre-ride a certain way, but is the field snaking left and right to really make the most of every apex of every corner? Or is the field riding kind of sloppy, and because the corners aren't going very fast yet, really just sitting in the center? You want to be able to note these field dynamics so that you know where the right places are to move up and where the wrong places are to move up for future laps. And then as well, this one's really important, especially if you're in lower categories. Be looking for riders who look comfortable, the wheels that are steady, the ones who are taking the corners and not losing any speed. You want to find those wheels and identify them. They're going to be people that you want to ride behind especially, but 2, they're probably going to be the same people who are going to be at the front of the race winning this race potentially. And then the second half of that is, who are the riders who look uncomfortable? Who are the riders who are, oh god, this guy can barely hold a wheel, this guy can't corner, this guy's sliding all over the field, making dangerous moves, making sketchy moves, stay away from him at all costs. By noting these 2 types of riders, you're going to keep yourself safer because you're following the right wheels, and you're going to keep yourself from crashing by staying away from dangerous moves that may affect you by accident. And then once you've done this, you really just want to settle into your actual race. So you want to find a good wheel and stick to it. And then as well, we'll make sure that if for whatever reason you're drifting up to the front and all of a sudden you're 1, maybe 2 wheels off the front, pull that back, sift back, let yourself drift and find a new wheel that you can follow. That's going to be really, really important for your success. And then lastly is you want to begin to execute your plan. Like I said, if you're a sprinter, your plan is really simple. Do nothing the entire time. Make sure that you're in a good position. Make sure you're not doing any work. If you're a breakaway rider, it may be time to start making the race hard. It may be time to start following some moves to see what's going to stick. This last part rings a little home. I was just involved in a crash this past week. I'm still banged up, unable to cycle. So take this with a grain of salt, as I'm a guy who just crashed, so I'm probably going to overly prioritize safety in this case. But I think there's some really great things that you can still learn, especially based on this race footage. So the very first thing one of my mentors in cycling said, it was really, really important, and I give a lot of credit to him. He said, if you're trying to win a race or cat up, you can't do so from the ground. Think about that. If you're trying to win a race or cat up, you can't do that from the ground. Meaning that if you crash at any point during that race, you're not getting any upgrade points, and you're certainly not winning that race if you go down hard. Sure, there's a chance that you can take a free lap and you can get back in it, but overall, if we're trying to build consistency into our race plans and consistency into our results, crashing is the #1 way to derail your training and to derail your race plan. So with that in mind, here are 4 tips that can keep you safer while you're riding within a pack. 1, I want you to assume that every rider around you is more willing to die than you are. What this basically does is, if you're going to play a game of chicken at any point during the race where you're wondering, is that guy going to do that? If you assume that that rider wants to die a little more than you do, you're going to assume that he'll make the crazier move. He or she will make the crazier move. And so it's really important that you make that base assumption that they are going to do something that is riskier than you will tolerate. If you start with that, you'll ride safer, almost guaranteed. The second of that follows it very similarly, which is assume every rider around you has 10 less brain cells than you do. Now, I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of brain cells anyway, so having 10 less than me is kind of hard. I'm kind of impressed that they can, spin the pedals on the bike. But what's important to know here is that whatever you would expect them to do, assume that they don't have the intelligence to know what you're going to do, or to predict it, or to ride safely. This isn't to diss your other riders. This isn't to disrespect them. This is just to say, hey, I know that I can't trust my fellow rider to respond the way I think they're going to. Because 1, you're not telling them that, so there's no way they can know. But 2, it may be totally unsafe, and they might not know it at all. 3 is ride defensively. Following points 1 and 2, we know that we don't trust our rider, and we know that we're going to assume that they're going to do more sketchy things than we're comfortable with. So with that in mind, if a rider comes swinging towards us, we're going to move to the left and move away from them. If a rider's going to really fight us for a wheel on lap 4, we're going to give it up and let them have it because it doesn't matter. And then most importantly is, like I just said, only make those tactical moves when it matters. So don't be doing something crazy into the last turn on lap 5. If you got 20 laps to go, there's no reason to box somebody out of the first corner and do something crazy. In that same way, you're going to keep yourself upright more often, and you're going to prevent less sketchy situations from happening overall. Now, as you can see on this footage right here, I just crashed and I just went down. Obviously super painful, very much not fun. I was trying to keep a rider from moving in. He had come around the outside and was trying to move back into the field, and I held my line to keep him in so that he would have to shift behind me. And as you can see, he doesn't see me. Bang, all the way to the ground. And now I've been out maybe 7 days now at the time of the release of this video. Haven't been able to train, haven't been able to work out. My ankle is kind of stuck because of some stitches. All that happened because of a giant accident. And so it's super important that when you follow those tips, that you understand that regardless, we all signed up for a crit race. It's gonna hurt sometimes. Sometimes you're gonna bike into a crash pile and there's nothing you could have done. Other times you're gonna be really, really pissed because a rider did something that you think is just so incredibly stupid. But every time we enter onto that crit course, we're saying, hey, I'm a little crazy, I'm doing something a little stupid, I gotta protect myself first. And so if you take anything else from this video, it's that. Protect your wheel first, protect your bike, and make sure that you get home safe. If you do that, you're going to have a hell of a lot more fun racing. You're going to be just so much more successful in your overall career. Once again, my name was Chris Sheldon. I'm racing with BMC Walmart Cycling, a great team here in Northwest Arkansas. Thanks so much for listening. If you did like this content or you've crashed, go ahead, give me a subscribe, hit that like button, tell me about your crash story, tell me how it's impacted your training. If you've come back and you're not recently feeling good back on the bike, let me know how it's going. Love to hear it. Also love to sympathize with some other fellow people who are sitting on the bed with some bandages on right now. Thanks so much, guys. Peace.